everyone, I have a very exciting guest in Monday Coffee, Christine Dela Rosa from
Hello.
Atlassian. So Christine, can you tell us a little bit about what you are doing in Atlassian with the Teamwork Lab?
Oh, sure. The Teamwork Lab is this booth that we have at Team'23, the conference. We've had it last year, we have it this year, we hope to have it every single year, but it's a different way to interact with experiences about how you team with different teammates. But essentially think about what practices do you have? So Nikki, before I get into it, let me ask you, can you name something that your team does on a regular basis? A ritual, a behavior, a practice, like
yes,
anything that's recurring? Give me an example.
Yeah, I'm working on a product team, so we do have a daily stand-ups, but
Daily
only
stand-up.
3 times a week.
Okay,
We've done
great.
We've done a cleanup of the rituals that you recommended, actually one of the...
Ritual, reset, play. So if you've ever been to the Atlassian Team Playbook, you can go to atlassianteamplaybook.com. Ritual, reset, play, you do daily stand-ups. Imagine if you went on a team and you suddenly didn't have access to that anywhere. You weren't allowed to do daily stand-ups. You weren't allowed to take a look at how you team and like clean it up and decide, should I do a retro on how we work together? Like, do you feel differently? Would you want to be on that team? Would you wish that you worked differently?
Yeah, you would need to like figure out how to do things. It's quite hard, right? So there needs to be some kind of
That's right.
guidance.
So what the Teamwork Lab does, it goes like, oh, some teams have this. Some teams do daily stand-ups.
Yes.
Some teams have one-on-ones with their managers. Some teams have, you can input into decision making for like when you plan for the quarter or for the year. But some teams don't, or some individuals on one team do, and some individuals don't. And so this whole thing is kind of like an interactive museum on, oh, this is an interesting practice. How come our team doesn't have it? Oh wow, I relate to this story that I'm hearing right now via the headphones. We have some audio stories. It's weird that a lot of people don't have access to this experience that they're having. And so the whole point is to just become more aware. The fact that people work differently, teams work differently, people within the same team work differently, and perhaps if we just knew that a little bit more, we could change the way we work, we could have more context and understanding about what other people need, and just improve the way we work as a result of being more aware.
Does this also somehow connect to your team's report that you're doing yearly? You're like checking
the
health
state
of
of
the
teams?
Yes.
We have a lot of activities in this booth, and one of them is this kind of survey Likert scale.
Oh.
These are just, so these are all movable. And you kind of see here that this is a bit of a code of like,
yes.
Do you strongly agree or do you strongly disagree? And you can kind of move these different bubbles and nodes to where how much you agree. So for example, on this first one, if you were to answer this, Nikki, I was free to decide how I carried out work.
Okay.
Would you agree, disagree?
I do agree.
Fully, all the way.
Yes.
Okay.
I do what I think is the
okay.
best. That's not always good.
For
Not
Nikki's
always
manager, she agrees with all of these. Nikki thinks that she has all 5 out of 5 stars here. All of these things. These are, by the way, just a sample of things that are an indicator of whether or not you have like a healthy work environment.
Yes, yes.
And so the State of Teams report that you're talking about, like we do regular surveys with different folks all around the world. And in a recent wave, we were able to see like, okay, overall, did people say compared to what you said? Mm-hmm. We also broke it down by different country. But I'm actually going to close this. This doesn't matter. The actual numbers, I don't want you to say like, oh, I'm better than all the other countries. I'm better than all the aggregates. All that you need to acknowledge is say like, whoa, not everybody is
like
all the way to the right. Like,
yeah.
oh, my experience is not representative of like all these other users responding to the survey. And so there isn't a right way or a wrong way, or you're not better or worse than other people. It's simply just to acknowledge everyone has different experiences. And like, let me ask you here, like, if now that you know, since you have an amazing
everything is good,
right,
which is suspicious. Shouldn't be like this, right?
Well, how do you feel? So like, let's say I'm on your team and I am like all the way here,
and I would be so happy. That's strange, right?
But so like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Is there a difference in our experiences? Are you having a different relationship with the team, or okay, all right, I'll move you there.
No,
but it's a bit of a discussion, and so like a lot of our activities all around kind of talk about illuminate an aspect of teamwork and a teamwork practice, and whether or not it's universal. Let me show you actually, do you mind if I take you around to a couple other
definitely. Let's have a look.
activities? Let's actually go outside. Which emoji would you use to emote thank you?
Oh, okay.
And we have like different ones out here. We've got the thumbs up, unless you wanted to move it all the way down or to the
How
side.
some say thank you.
I don't know whether or not to call this high five or pray or what.
Yeah, this
but
one is quite controversial.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
But we just picked a sample. There's like so many emojis, right? But how would you say thank you? And people are plotting all on the map. Where do you normally work, and how do you say thank you there? And this is interesting, and it's not actually to say, oh, well, the hearts are the biggest, so I guess that's, oh, okay.
Let's go.
That's actually the one that I would choose too.
Yeah.
So if in this area you are saying this is how you say thank you, it's interesting to say like, how come no one else said that over there? You're the only one?
Yeah,
That's not the point of the story,
maybe
though.
Maybe you work with the teams
Maybe
here,
you work with people who more regularly use that. Exactly, that's a great insight that I didn't even think about until this moment. But also, it's not even about who's right, who's wrong. It's more just like, oh, that's right. Emojis mean different things to different people. So for example, we have a podcast called the Work Check Podcast that I host. Shout out to all the fans out there.
Awesome.
If you have any reviews or notes, like we're taking questions for the future debates, whatever you want to debate, we'll talk about it. There's an episode that you can actually see. We have a call out to that episode. It's actually live right now. If you go to the Work Check Podcast, the most recent episode is about whether or not we should use emojis at work, because it's not just this thank you idea that might be interpreted differently depending on the emoji you use. It's also like, here's a little spoiler alert, but I'm on there learning from one of the debaters saying, hey, so what's your most common emoji? And I'm like, oh, the thumbs up one. And she was like, oh, did you know that younger generations do not, they think that's passive aggressive, that you're not really feeling it. And I was like, what are you talking about? Are you calling me old? And she's like, no, but just be aware that your interpretation of a thumbs up is not the same interpretation as someone else.
Yes.
And she was like, don't worry about it. At least you're not using the regular smiley face emoji. And I'm like, oh, I do that all the time. And she was like, Christine,
Then to stranger.
that's not okay. That means that you're not really into something and that you're just like passive aggressively acknowledging another statement. And I'm like, I don't mean it that way. But the thing is, we're not even understanding from a cultural, from a geographical, from an age, gender, like we don't know what people mean really with emojis until we kind of get a feel for, oh, in this culture, in this team, in this specific group, that's what the normal is.
I definitely am going to listen to the emoji podcast because I'm overusing emojis, I think, sometimes.
Maybe that's your team culture though? Is that
Yeah, I think because we came from a very, very small team, we were using emojis a lot, and I had a feeling that because we were a fully remote team, we never met each other in person until like 3 years later.
Sure.
And I think emojis and going on the daily update calls was something that like helped us to build the culture. Because sometimes people are like, oh, stand-ups should be very efficient, like what I'm doing now, what I've done yesterday, and it blockers. But that wasn't really the reason, 100% the reason why we were doing the stand-ups. We were doing the stand-ups to see each other face to face.
Yes.
We had a small chat in the beginning.
Yes.
You could join, you didn't need to participate.
You get on the same page, you have the same energy, the same vibe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We were even doing this like a rapping thing once.
Together.
Yeah, together. Okay, where should we go next?
We have a facilitated activity, so lots of self-service things. Along with other self-service activities, we have this kind of library of stories. So in high school, every time we held auditions for concert seating, only upperclassmen got first and second chair. In my regional group, we used blind auditions and were assigned numbers. That number was said aloud before we played 2 sections in a piece. That way, the conductor wouldn't be able to know which member was associated with which audition. But during my sophomore year, my school adopted the blind audition practice, and even though I was not an upperclassman, I got first chair for my section. So this is a concert violinist, and what it was basically saying is that like there was a little bit of bias in the way that they were being selected. So if you're in an orchestra, you get seated by your skill level. The more skill you have, the better chair or the better seat that you get. And so there was some bias because like no matter what, the same types of people, just the older people, were getting the top spots.
Yes.
So when they stripped away the visual aid in the video auditions, it was like, okay, you can only listen to how well they played. Suddenly, it was different seating, so it showed that there was a little bit of bias in the way that concert seats were done. And so this is an example of a practice that someone was like giving a before and after for, and so you can kind of scroll through different examples. These iPads, you can actually like sit, just like you were at a museum, put on these headphones, and you can scroll through and play an actual story and listen to it. And they're about between 5 and 15 minutes, depending on the story, but people like are really good performers on another podcast called The Moth, and some of these stories are from The Moth, some of them are from Atlassians, and it's just another way to kind of connect with another human on what it's like to experience different practices on a team. We also have an activity that is the only activity that requires a facilitator, and it's called Advantage Auction. And what it does is there are two different groups. It could be a group of 2 versus 2 people. It could be 5 versus 5 people, 10 versus 10. So if you want to get your competitive edge out there, you're essentially bidding against the other team for different things. So pick out one of these that you really think is important, for example.
I think I see project retrospective.
Okay, so project retrospectives are an example of a variety of practices or opportunities that teams have to work better together. So you think this is really valuable. What you would then do is assign like, okay, how many chips do you think that's worth? Is it worth like 500? Is it worth just 100? Is this one worth just 100? Like,
and
you
then
assign
you bid
all,
on these,
yeah, that's right, you're bidding. So when the bidding process is over, you then reveal like how much did everyone bid, and there's a good chance that you're not going to win all the things that you want. So if you only have like one chip, there's a good chance the other team is going to outbid you, and you're just hoping. And we have a big discussion of like, was it hard? Did you agree in your group on what value you valued you most? Why didn't you agree on that? Why is that different? Hey, we're using chips. Why do you think that currency has to do with evaluation of these practices? Do you think that it's fair? Do you think that it's unfair? It's just a really good discussion on what teams have access to, like something as simple as having regular one-on-ones with managers. I saw earlier a group that was just arguing so much, like, this is critical for me to be able to get my work done, and then the other half of the group was like, I have never had this in my life, and I've been working, and I don't understand how you can have so much time with a manager. And so it's just really interesting to see what people value and how experiencing it makes them value it a lot more. So it's a really good reminder that we just may not know what it's like to have a different type of team environment, and how much we can appreciate when we experience it differently.
This is great. I actually think that this is a great exercise. You cannot have all the meetings.
You won't. Yeah.
Because there is no time. You would just do the meetings. So that's a great exercise how to actually select the right meetings for your team. And
the right meetings, the right practices. Like, what do you think is the most important thing for your time to keep? You can't do all the things.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. Yeah. So that's Advantage Auction.
Thank you so much, Christine.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming by.
I hope that this is going to help.
If you need anything, or if you want to come by for an actual Advantage Auction, then
I'm going to
grab a ring light. Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much.
Compete with myself. Thank you.